The biological perspective is a way of looking at psychological issues by studying the physical behaviour for humans. One of the major perspectives in psychology and involves things such as studying the brain and genetics. The relative age effect is a biological perspective in which it is a phenomenon in which children are born in or close to a critical age cut-off period where they may have an advantage in both athletic and academic endeavours. An earlier birth is typically associated with increased physical ability. This was shown in a recent study, where a more mature football player were faster than their less mature peers due to a biological advantage. As a result, it appears that the relative age effect, for example, being born later potentially puts you at a disadvantage, is principally due to being physically, emotionally, and cognitively less developed than others. In addition, individuals born in early quartiles, which are September to November and December to February, are more likely to persevere in sport by being able to actively dominate in physical bouts and key performances measure. This suggests that as time goes on, those who are less mature drop out of sports and are not as successful, motivated, or as fulfilled by the experience in their younger years of competition. So this shows that quartile students 1 and 2, so athletes born in September to November and December to February, are more likely to continue in sport, potentially become professional footballers, for example, as opposed to those that are born in the 3rd and 4th quartile, which are March to May and June to August, where they may feel more likely to drop out or be sent out of teams due to their body not being grown at the same progression rate as the others, as they'll have months in advance on top of those that are in the later quartile, making them have an unfair advantage over them. The environment is another biological impact because of how it affects and impacts our body. This is because if you run on high altitudes and temperatures, then your body will learn how to cater the oxygen intake, so that it makes sure that your VO2 outtake and intake will increase as and when necessary. Whereas, if you get used to running in lower altitudes, then your VO2 will not be as high as when you run in the higher altitude. Those who constantly train in the higher altitude and environments will be able to go for longer periods of time and run faster. For example, canyon runners constantly run in high altitudes, temperatures and hot environments, so they have a bigger VO2 output, as opposed to runners in the UK who have a lower VO2 output, as they don't need to run in such high altitudes, temperatures or hot environments, and can go to places where they cater the environment to make it more comfortable and more suitable for the athlete to want to perform to their best possible advantage, as opposed to canyon runners who don't have any equipment and just purely use the land that they have as a place that they practice, from running from school from such a young age to competitions, as they find it's there anyway to be able to get off the island. Genetic factors such as tissues, aerobic capacity, muscle mass, height, flexibility, coordination, intellectual ability, and personality make the difference between you taking part in teams or sports. Tissues, aerobic capacity, are a genetic factor because if you physically cannot take in any more oxygen, then you aren't going to be able to go for longer periods of time doing aerobic activity, meaning things like long distance running would not be ideal, as you would get out of breath quickly and not be able to keep up with the rest. Height is a genetic factor because if you are short, then you may have to look into a sport like being a jockey, as opposed to being something like a sumo wrestler, where you are able to play to the advantage of you being small and light, making the horse go faster, as opposed to being small and end up being squished if you were going to be a sumo wrestler. Flexibility can be a genetic factor because although it can be improved over time by stretching, it may not be as good as someone who is hypermobile, meaning that they are double jointed, which allows them to bend in ways that the average person is not able to, allowing them to be more suited to things like gymnastics, as opposed to someone who plays rugby, who is more likely to be muscly and not necessarily very flexible. Intellectual ability can play an impact because if you are not quick at thinking or have very good hand-eye coordination, then it may be the difference between you being elite at table tennis or just playing it for fun. Personality is a big factor because if you don't end up getting along with the majority of the team that you are playing with, then you could end up causing a divide in the team, and rather than playing in harmony and having the win that you could deserve, you could end up causing a divide in the team, which prevents you from playing to your best advantage, as they potentially don't want to be passing the ball, for example, to someone else. They may want to be playing by themselves. That way they know they have the best fighting chance in winning.